Layla, we have quorum. We have 7, if according to my count. So.
Yeah, I have the same. And quorum is at 6, correct? Or quorum is at 7. Quorum is at 7. So we're going to wait 1 more minute to make sure that we are over quorum. And then we're going to get started. Thank you all for your patience. Okay, so we are at quorum. We are on time and ready to go. So I'm going to call this meeting to order. Good evening, everyone. My name is Layla Logiziko. I am the chair of the Land Use, Housing and Zoning Committee of Community Board 5. I am joined by my vice chair, Aaron Ford, as well as members of the committee. We are here tonight for our regularly scheduled committee meeting. We have 3 items on the agenda. We will, let me say a few words about how the meeting is going to proceed. Each applicant or the representative will be given an opportunity to give a full and uninterrupted presentation. Following this presentation, members of the committee will have the opportunity to ask questions. Once the question period concludes, I will open up the floor to members of the public. Members of the public will have an opportunity to ask questions and make comments to the applicant and the application. The applicant will have an opportunity to address those. And then we will move to business session. During business session, only members of the committee are allowed to discuss the matter. We will do just that, discuss the matter and come to a resolution. We will make a motion. This motion will be taken to a vote. The vote of this motion becomes the official position of the committee. This position will be presented to the full board of Community Board 5 the second Thursday in June. And the full board will have an opportunity to vote on the committee's recommendation. The full vote of Community Board 5 becomes the official position of the board. It will be forwarded to the relevant agencies. In our case tonight, it would be the Department of City Planning, as well as the City Planning Commission. We also forward our recommendations to the relevant elected officials. Members of the committee, if you have a conflict, you should disclose it before making any comments or asking any questions. And with all of that being said, we will start with the first item on the agenda tonight. And this is a presentation by the Department of City Planning on behalf of the City Planning Commission for a proposal to raise the rate of the transfer of development rights within the theater subdistrict for the theater subdistrict fund contribution. And we are joined tonight by Ezra. I know you're here, Ezra. Oh yeah, I see you. And maybe some of your colleagues are also in attendance, but definitely Ezra, the floor is yours. Take it away.
All right. Do you have a copy of the presentation to pull up, or should I be driving for myself? Happy to do either.
I don't know what was agreed. If you want to share your screen and
sure.
Do it this way, I think that would be perfect.
Sure. Just give me 1 second. Okay, so this is basically a copy of what we just presented to the commission on Monday for pre-hearing review. So give me 1 quick second. Can everybody see that okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so this is a kappa adjustment of the theater subdistrict funds minimum contribution rate. A kappa process means an adjustment via the Citywide Administrative Procedure Act. The requested action here is it's very minor in scope, but I'm sure we'll have a lively discussion about it. It's to update the theater subdistrict funds contribution rate through kappa, and 81-744 of the zoning resolution allows listed theaters in the theater subdistrict, which is part of the special Midtown district, to transfer their unused floor area to receiving sites district-wide. And it's subject to a per square foot contribution to the theater subdistrict fund. So relatively similar to the framework in East Midtown, where a landmark can transfer district-wide to an eligible receiving site. But in this case, it's the contribution is strictly per square foot. So we, had been updating the fund behind the scenes, and then we presented to the commission first in April. The way the kappa process works is that we bring it to the City Planning Commission. It's then published in the city record for comment. And so that was done on April 22nd. And it's now returning for a public hearing that was actually this morning. The comment period is still open until midnight tonight. So if the community board wants to submit comments, testimony, resolution, we'll be accepting it up until midnight. And, to be honest, if it's sent in a day or two or whatnot, I think that you will obviously take into consideration and be discussing it at post-hearing follow-up. We just received some testimony from the Manhattan Borough President. So that last bullet is that we didn't receive any comments during the notice period, but we received it for the CPC process. And the theater subdistrict is what you see here on the right. Some of you are probably familiar with it. It encompasses an area roughly 8th Avenue to 6th Avenue and 40th Street up to 57th Street. It contains, this is the new slide. So this just outlines the kappa process. This is really, this proposal, this presentation is more structured for the commission. So, I'm going to come back to this slide for y'all. So the theater subdistrict contains a number of what are termed listed theaters. These are typically landmark theaters, or they have interior landmarks. And these are the types of theaters that are eligible to transfer their unused development rights. In our estimate, there are about 1.3 million square feet still available in the subdistrict. About 650,000 square feet have currently been transferred to date. The last time any application used this section was 2011, I believe. So this just shows where the 45 listed theaters are and where they're clustered, which tends to be in the theater subdistrict core, which is this gray area you see in the middle of the subdistrict. So as I alluded to, there's, 23 prior transfers totaling 600,000 square feet of floor area, and there's roughly 1.4 million square feet remaining across 17 theaters. So there's still ample opportunity for transfers here in this district. The current contribution rate is $17.60 a square foot and is based basically on the assessed property values for every zoning lot in the theater subdistrict. And the contribution rate was originally $10 a square foot when this section and subdistrict was created in 1998. It was adjusted in 2006 to $14.91. And then in 2011, it was adjusted up to $70.60 per square foot. The rate is supposed to be adjusted every 3 to 5 years. We did have a 2016 text amendment that was relatively comprehensive and sought to change how we determine the contribution rate. And it was withdrawn at the city council stage. And that was the last time we attempted to update it. So we are now getting around to it. And we've determined using the prior methodology that it is $24.65 per square foot. And I can get more into the data in further slides, but that's the snapshot of that is basically taken from the end of 2021, which is the most reliable data that we have. So for folks who aren't familiar, the Theater Subdistrict Council and the Theater Subdistrict Fund are a 501c3 that manage this fund of money that, TDR has made a contribution into, and it's consisted of 8 members. Its purpose is to generally promote theater and theater-related use within the sub-district and help promote the welfare of the sub-district. The goals are to enhance the long-term viability of Broadway by facilitating the production of plays and musicals within the theater sub-district, developing new audiences for all types of theatrical productions, and monitoring preservation and use covenants in Broadway's listed theaters. And a key piece of this also is that new audiences are developed through reduced price tickets. So far, there have been 6 rounds of grant making, and they've distributed over $9 million and over 266,000 free or discounted tickets, and have engaged 62,000 students in arts programming. So there are 58 grants for new audience development, arts education, and programming for students, the development of new types of presentations, and training for non-performing professions in the theater and performing arts field, which is, a real key source of grant funding, recipient of grant funding. So the current balance as of fiscal year 2021 is $216,000. There's $75,000 required to be held in reserve. There's $141,000 available to spend. We have a lot of info about the types of grants that we give, and the balance, and all the data is available on DCP's website. I'm not sure if the latest meeting minutes from 2021 were put up yet, but they should be soon. Since 2019, no new grants have been made, largely due to the pandemic. Anyway, so the rate, which is a subject of this application, the way it's determined is that it reflects the change in assessed value of all properties on zoning lots that are wholly within the theater sub-district. So that basically means that whatever the previous rate is, in this case, 2011, it's multiplied by the percent change in the per square foot assessed value of the entire theater sub-district. And assessed value is something that's determined by the Department of Finance. So again, as I noted, the proposed rate is $24.65. This shows you essentially the math of, how we get to this. You do total up the entire building floor area, you total up the total assessed value as per Department of Finance data, and you divide the assessed value by the total floor area to get a value per square foot. And so then you look at what's the the net change, and then the percent change between 2011 and 2021, and then you take that percent change and increase the 2011 rate by that. So that's how we end up with $24.65. And during discussion, I'm happy to come back to this slide because I know there's like a lot on here. This just shows some of the more recent approvals and rate changes. I think the main takeaway here is that there has not been an application pursuant to these sections in quite some time. So I sent an email over to some of the folks on the committee about the members and the board, but there's Commissioner of DCA, Lori Cumbo, Dan Grodnick, the CPC chair and director of city planning, is also on it. David Henry Huang, the mayor's appointee, Darryl Roth, the mayor's appointee, Lin-Manuel Miranda, the mayor's appointee, Paige Price, the council speaker's designee, and then Borough President Levine are all on the council. So that's all. Actually, I'm going to go back to the first slide just about process for y'all. This was again intended for the commission, but essentially we are at where the red piece is. So I guess this is actually, quite apropos, but basically the CPC just held a public hearing on it today. There was no there was no speakers, but we're accepting written testimony. Potentially the commission can vote on June 8th. And then it gets published again in the city record for a 30-day waiting period, and could theoretically go live as early as July 13th. This is kind of a roadmap of how CAPA processes work. And I can talk more through that because the East Midtown contribution rate is also going to be adjusted by a CAPA before the end of the year. So it's going to go through a similar process whereby there's not really a formal community board referral process, but it's one that, is substantive, and, we think that, you'd like to be involved in, so we bring it to you as well. But yeah, that essentially concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you so much, Ezra. Let's jump into questions, and then we can do a little bit of framing and explaining maybe a little bit of the background if need be. Members of the committee, the floor is now yours for questions. You can use the raise hand function to indicate that you have a question. Nancy, go ahead.
Okay, so I was assigned to review the background on this particular application, and David and I were supposed to work on this. So what I did is I looked up the last resolution that this community board wrote, which was May 2016, so I'll just give you some information on that. And I believe that we need to still ask for some of the same things we asked for in 2016 because they're necessary, and we haven't had any movement from the City Planning Commission to consider any of these. So let me just start by, the original Special Theater District was created in 1967 as the first special district. In 1998, the zoning amendment was established for this new mechanism, and which created the Theater Subdistrict Council Fund. As you know, there are 45 theaters that are listed, and DCP is obligated to revisit and consider these modifications to the price between 3 and 5 years. Well, so they're a year off. It's been 6 years since they did a rate increase. The initial price that we had wanted was 20% of the value of the development rights, and that would result in a higher contribution than what I think we're getting right now. So I would like to say that, so I want to ask, can we go to 20%? That would be my first question, because I don't think it is at 20%. Is it, Ezra?
They are private transactions, but our sense is that it's less than 20%. The contribution rate is between 10 and 20%, but that's really back of the envelope. And as to your question about the scope of this, I think that, you're welcome to, put in a request for more comprehensive review of the and text amendment to how the rate's calculated. But in this case, it's the zoning confines us to just adjusting it the way we have traditionally with this assessed value mechanism.
Okay, so
if I can just interject a little bit of background here, Nancy. If you recall, in 2016, there was actually a zoning tax amendment, and the zoning tax amendment basically, and Ezra, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was actually coming from the Department of City Planning. And the intention of the zoning tax amendment was to say, okay, the methodology that is used to assess the value is actually not really working, and it should be 20%. So that's what the department itself was asserting. And they came to us, we agreed with them that, it should be 20%. We were in favor of that new methodology. What we wanted also was to have a seat at the table so that we would have representation on the council, which is, currently made up of members where, the mayoral representation has the majority. It proceeded through the circuit, and it was killed at the city council level. So given that, the amendment did not have the vote, then the Department of City Planning decided to withdraw the amendment. Just a little bit of clarification, Nancy. So they did come back to us in 2016 with this amendment, but there was actually no revaluation of the contribution back then. because back then what they were doing was saying, we need to change the methodology. And that's all they did. And it failed. And then they went back to the drawing board. So the valuation has not been done since, I believe, 2011. I see Ezra is shaking his head. So they are very, very, very late. Not a little bit by 1 year, very, very late. So right now we're in the situation that is, a little bit uncomfortable because, that it is an administrative action that they're seeking. There's no formal role for the community board to, it's not like ULURP where, formally they have to come and seek our advice. There is an opportunity to provide comments. But as Ray said, the deadline is tonight at midnight. And we feel that, it is still important to hear the matter tonight. And, we're very grateful that Ezra agreed to come and present. And we're going to see what we can do. If we can whip something up and deliver comments before midnight, great. If we can't, then we're going to ask for an extension, and we will explain that, they need to keep the record open for a couple more days. But in essence, I think that the broader role that we have here is actually to really seriously engage in negotiations, so that the methodology is reworked altogether. We thought in 2016 that this amendment was really good and really necessary. For a little bit of background also and context, East Midtown has a similar mechanism, and their formula is 20%. So, it is, and Ezra, I think from the top of my head, the East Midtown contribution is set at $65.
$61.49.
$61.
Yeah,
so,
the minimum contribution.
The case can be made that, the assessed value in East Midtown is higher than in Times Square, but not by that much. It's like between Midtown East and Midtown West, there is maybe a slight difference in land value and in floor area value, but it's not that great. And right now, the delta between 24 and 61 is obviously huge. So, that's for a little bit of the background and the context. So, I think that your line of inquiry is very valid and very important. So
I have another question.
Yeah, go ahead, Nancy.
Okay, so in the past, we have asked for the certification of the transfer of development rights for each property to be performed by the full City Planning Commission to maintain and ensure to us that there's a continued level of transparency. Is that the case now? Is it still the certification reviewed by the entire?
Yes, it is.
Board?
It's a rare breed of land use action. It's called a CPC certification. So it's still technically a ministerial action, but instead of kind of a more typical process like you might see for a POPs or something, it's referred out to the community board and borough president for 60 days, and it has like a full process at the commission. Okay,
good. That's good. I have one final question.
Yeah. Go ahead.
The receiving sites, we believe needs to have more oversight and improvement, because the receiving sites are supposed to have theater-related uses to ensure that the developers are providing and maintaining theater-related uses outlined in their restrictive declarations. And we see some issues going on with that. I spoke with a former board member who was very active in this, and he has disappointed with the lack of response for the receiving sites to actually have theater-related uses. So I'm wondering, is there a way that can be tightened up? Do you know anything about that, Ezra, on the receiving sites? Do you understand my question?
Yeah, I do. not familiar, but it would be a text amendment to do anything related to, you know, tightening up any uses on receiving sites. But to my knowledge, not having done one of these applications in, you know, several years, I'm not familiar with the use requirements for receiving sites for these, the transfers by certification.
Okay. That's something Layla will have to also tighten up with, because it's not working as well as it should. I'm
Yeah,
done.
if I remember, some of the space in the receiving side has to be dedicated for theater use, theater or theater related use. And it can be in community space, it can be a theater in its own right, it can be rehearsal space, but this was part of the provision. Ezra, just to refresh our memory, I know you mentioned it, but when was the last time there was a transfer?
I think it was finalized in 2016. Sorry, let me just, there. So 2016, the Helen Hayes Theater did 2 separate transfers to 2 different receiving sites. And then that was around the same time that we were attempting to put the more comprehensive text amendment through the ULURP process.
And these receiving sites have been developed, or the development is still to occur?
It's a good question. For the 2 most recent ones, I'd have to look into it. I would assume so, given the time that's elapsed, but I'm not familiar off the top of my head. So I have to look into that.
Okay. And as far as you know, are there any upcoming transfers of development rights, and any receiving site that is interested in acquiring some of these air rights?
There has been some interest. You know, pre-application statements are foilable. But yeah, there's been some interest. There's, you know, some application material in the very early stages.
Okay, and you want us to foil it, or can we ask you to tell us right here, right now?
I mean, I believe any, you know, disclosure about applications aren't at the filed stage have to go through FOIL process.
Okay, all right. So we will send you an email tomorrow. Nancy, do you have any follow-ups? Okay, Aaron, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Thanks, Ezra, for joining. If you went in the top of the meeting here before you have to go. So hopefully we'll be quick. The 2 quick questions. So looking at the math here, so with the discussion of the 20% of your value, obviously we're saying that it's not at the same rate as East Midtown, but what would the 2465 look like if we did the 20% calculation on these numbers? I realize you're saying like the transactions are private, but 20% of this value, like what number would that bring us to if that was the calculation?
I mean, I'm assuming that that's roughly 25 times 5, $125. But yeah, we don't know the actual transactions because they're, you know, private. In East Midtown, we, you know, require a certain level of transparency with the transactions. You know, they're referred to the community board. It's all very upfront about how much, you know, is being paid for them. But in this case, these are private. So what realistically is 20% of the most recent transactions from 2016, 2015, et cetera. You know, we're not sure as a result.
Okay, but there would be no, like, what would be the motivation of undervaluing that value?
I mean, I don't think there's any like intentional undervaluing there. My, you know, understanding, to be kind of candid, is that in the 1998 text amendment, when it was set at $10 a square foot, that was assumed to be roughly approximate to 20% of the value. So I think that was at a point when it was creating a new market, and we did write into the zoning again this way of adjusting it. And so, and it's also in the rules of the city of New York, which is why we have to do this CAPA process too. So you know, we adjust it in this very formulaic way.
Understood. Okay. Second question, in the April hearing, the April DCP hearing, there was a robust discussion about the use of the funds in the pot, 216,000. There was discussions of that the sort of rules of how the funds could be used was broadening, and maybe actually broadening outside of Broadway. For example, there was something brought up about BAM, and money was going to institutions in Brooklyn, which is not obviously Broadway. So there hasn't been a lot of transactions recently, but do we have any sense of where the money's been going, or the last transaction of exactly like where the funds have been going, and what percentage has been going to actually like
theaters and the theater sub-district
versus institutions outside of this geographic area?
Off the top of my head, I don't know the ratio. It is publicly available, and I can also forward it to committee members, after the meeting, in terms of the last 2 rounds of grant making. But it was pretty robust. I'm just, off the top of my head, it seemed like there was around 15 grants being made, and it, seemed to be a relatively even distribution between, in the theater sub-district and other, programs or locales. I think that, I'm not, directly involved with the theater sub-district council. That's kind of a question for DCP's council, as to what the bylaws really allow for. There was a robust discussion at the previous CPC review session on April 11th. But I think there's a sense that a lot of these grants, for example, go towards, career development opportunities in like non-performing roles in the performing arts. And whether that apprenticeship training happens maybe offsite at somewhere like BAM versus within the theater sub-district, the intention is that people who become, deeply, involved in a career in the theater industry would be, working on Broadway. So there's kind of a cross-pollination. So that's what I've understood from these discussions, but it was brought up that, some folks have had a desire to tighten up the use to being more about the Broadway theater district itself, as opposed to kind of the whole ecosystem for the theater industry.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, next question from members of the committee. Any more questions? I don't see any hands up, so I will open up to members of the public. Do we have any questions or comments from members of the public? We have Alex Young. You will be permitted to speak, and you can unmute yourself. If you can introduce yourself and tell us your question or comment.
Thanks, Layla. I'm Alex Young in the Biltmore Tower on the northeast corner of 47th and 8th. Fastest question in the world. Ezra, did you have a hand in creating the list of the 45 theaters? Because what's listed as theater number 4, which you have as the Biltmore Theater, it hasn't been called that in 13 years. So I just wanted to point out that it's, at least since I've lived here, it's been called the Samuel Friedman Theater, and the residential tower that's right next to it is called the Biltmore Tower, which is where I live. So I just wanted to, and I love your shirt, by the way, Ezra. It's very fun.
Thank you. I had no hand in the naming of this, and some of the names change periodically. I've just been made aware that the Court Theater number 10 is going to be changed to the James Earl Jones Theater, effective pretty soon. So yes, this was, I believe, the actual list of listed theaters was created in 1998. So it's outdated, and perhaps there's a kind of an old moniker used at that point.
Thank you very much.
Ezra, do you wish to address the comment on your shirt?
Oh yeah, thank you. It's my birthday, so I felt like it's being celebratory.
Oh my God, fantastic. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
All right, moving on. Any more questions from members of the public or comments? We're taking questions and comments from members of the public. Okay, seeing no hands up, let's move back to members of the committee, and we are entering business session. Nancy, go ahead.
So if Ezra turns his slides to number 6, I think it is, there's a link, Ezra, that you have. Yeah, there. If you go to this, if you hit this link and go here, it will give you all of the meeting minutes and board meetings, and it also gives you a list of every single grant that's been made to whom and how much in what year. So that would answer, Aaron, your question about who's getting what when. Okay, so it goes all the way back to the very beginning. It's a very useful site. So I just wanted to point that out. That's one comment. The second comment is I think we have to push again for a board seat. Our chair should be on this council. It says there are supposed to be 8 seats, and I noticed there were only 7, so there's a space open. And the third thing I wanted to bring out is I think the amount per square foot rate should be at least $50 a square foot. That's my opinion. So those are my comments.
Thank you, Nancy. Do you have some sort of a rough formula that brings you to 50?
No, it just looks like $24 is pitiful. And it doesn't really, and in today's world, at the inflation that we are seeing, you can't do a lot with $24 a square foot. You can do a lot more with 50. And if what you say about East Midtown is that it's 60, 50 doesn't seem unreasonable. So I think we should argue about the rate that being way too low. It's been too low from the beginning.
Yeah. And the part that is terribly frustrating is that because it is calculated, the increase is based on the previous rate, and given that the rate from the get-go was way too low, then there's never a way to ever achieve a fair value. David, go ahead.
Yes, I agree totally with Nancy. 50 does not sound like too much at all. I'm sure you're all aware that ACWR's equity members, it's less than 1% of actors who can support themselves by their craft. And certainly the real estate industry can contribute more to this fund. And yes, let's get somebody at the table. Let's be represented on the Planning Commission itself. It's a great idea. Thank you, Nancy.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you, Dave. Any other comments? I think we pretty much are starting to see where we're going with that. Is there any disagreement with Nancy? Do you want to add something? Go ahead.
Yeah, I have one thing. The only other thing is after speaking to one of our board members, David Diamond, we need a way to confirm with the receiving site and the developer, they are actually going to put in theater-related uses that comply with their restrictive declaration. And that has not been happening. And there was a specific instance that he mentioned to me whereby the theater-related use was never actually done. There were some court cases and things going back and forth, and nothing ever happened. And yet that developer got those air rights and did not follow through. And that's upsetting. I mean, if we have this, we need to make sure that there's confirmation and there's monitoring, and that we are certain that these theater-related uses are actually put in buildings on the receiving sites. That's my last one.
Yeah, okay, totally agree with that. All right, so I think we have a good sense of where this is going. I just want to make sure, is there anyone who is in disagreement with what was stated already or has a different approach, so that, I want to make sure that we are reflective of the views of the committee. Okay, seeing no hands going up, I think we can move this to a motion. So I just want to make it very clear, this is not an application, but we're going to treat it as an application. So we can make a motion, we can, and then we can, in the resolve, state our recommendation, okay? And we'll figure out the timeline. I mean, if we can, get something ready by midnight, we'll try. Otherwise, we'll beg and plead to, be allowed to enter something into the record tomorrow.
We'll consider it. Don't worry.
Thank you, Ezra. Thank you. All right, so someone needs to make a motion. Nancy?
Motion to approve with the addition of what we talked about, the 50% per square foot and a seat at the table.
And I will second that.
The motion, so wait. The motion would be to actually deny the 24, deny the valuation, and instead recommend a valuation to be $50, or are you okay, Nancy, with saying $50 or 20%? Whichever one is greater.
Well, the 20% is going to, $50 is going to be, yeah, okay. $50 is going to be greater because I don't think that's, but it's hard to tell what it is. It's hard to tell what it is with the way the math is done. And math is not my strong subject. So.
Okay, but
yes,
so,
okay.
Okay, so the motion would be to recommend that we basically disagree with the valuation, and we want $50 per square foot or 20%, whichever one is greater. We want a seat at the table, and we want strict enforcement of a theater use at the receiving side as per the restrictive declaration. Those are the 3 points, right?
Yes,
Okay.
motion to approve.
Okay. And Nancy, do you want to second it?
Yes, I second it.
Okay.
I have a question for you, Layla. If we can get this done tonight, David and I could probably work on it, right, David? If we could get this done tonight, doesn't it have to go to the full board first as a resolution? We really can't.
Yes, it does.
So we can't really do anything tonight.
Well, let's convene with our chair of the board. I know that Vicky is with us tonight. Vicky, this is actually a question for you, or we can take it offline and see what can be done. Whatever you feel more appropriate.
I'm on my phone. My computer just conked out completely. Definitely put something in tonight. It can come from the committee. We should have something on record and we can ratify it at a later date, but we should get it in regardless of the fact that it hasn't gone to the full board. It would not go from CB5 membership. It would go from CB5 Land Use, Housing and Zoning Committee.
Okay.
But it would be written as a resolution. It would still be written as a
Yes,
resolution.
definitely.
Okay.
Yes.
I want the format of it. Okay. David,
Yeah.
can you work with me on this tonight?
I'd be glad to. As you probably
Okay.
can see, I'm a little over my head on this one, but I'd be
No, you're
glad
not.
to do where I can. So,
We have a format to follow, so it should go pretty fast.
okay, I'd be glad to do it.
We got to get it in. I'm
Yeah.
deadline
You guys are
driven.
awesome. Fantastic. All right, let's take this to a vote. Aaron, if you want to do the roll call.
Sure. Clayton is not on, right? I don't see him. Okay.
That's right. He's not with us.
EJ,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Mike Greeley,
Yes.
Nancy,
Yes.
Julie,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
Andreas,
Yes.
Nick,
Yes.
David,
Yes,
Aaron is a yes, and Layla.
Yes.
Okay. Motion passes.
Unanimous vote. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ezra. Happy birthday. And
Thank you.
we will work hard to get something ready. Should we email it to you? Should we email it to somebody else?
Yeah, email it to me. I'll make sure it gets to the right folks. And feel free to reach out with any questions.
Fantastic. Okay, much appreciated. Thank you so much. So we are moving on to our next item on the agenda, which is actually an application. It is 1221 6th Avenue. This is an application by 1221 Avenue Holding LLC for certification by the chairperson of the City Planning Commission pursuant to sections 37-624 and 37-73C of the zoning resolution to allow for 2 open-air cafes on West 49th Street frontage of a public plaza. We have Zach in the room. Zach, you're here for this application, right?
Yes. Hi, Layla. Hi, Aaron. Yes, are you ready for us to begin?
The floor is yours. Take it away.
Great. Committee members, thanks for having us tonight. I'm Zach Bernstein with Fried Frank, counsel to the owners Rockefeller Group. I'm here with my colleague Liz Lee, who's driving the presentation. Next slide, please. 1221 Avenue of the Americas is the former McGraw-Hill building. I'm sure many of you are familiar with it, located along 6th Avenue between 48th and 49th Streets. The building is like many of the buildings along 6th Avenue, which were designed in parallel with each other. It is recessed back from Avenue of the Americas and is surrounded by three plaza portions, one on the south, which is shown here as Plaza 3, one on the north, which is indicated as Plaza 2, and then on the east is a raised plaza along Avenue of the Americas, which we'll look at more in a second. Next slide, please. In a series of applications to the chair of the City Planning Commission some years ago, the South Plaza and North Plazas were improved together with a building renovation at the time that improved the lobbies and changed the entrances and better activated, provided transparency, et cetera. So this is a photograph of the improvements on the south side of the building. It included seating, marble seating ledges, as well as some movable tables and chairs. Next slide, please. There's a similar approach on the north along 49th Street. The movable tables and chairs aren't shown here, but they're movable tables and chairs, as well as these seating ledges and seating with backs and planting. Both of these plazas in the north and south previously did not have any improvements in them. And so the design changes were to add these amenities to this plaza. And it's not shown here, but these are pretty well used. You see people perching on these throughout the day. Next slide, please. At the time that we went in for the design changes on the north and south, planning was underway, has been underway for many, many years to try to improve the conditions along 6th Avenue. This is probably a familiar condition to many others who have been there more recently. Would see a construction zone. These elevated plazas were also pretty heavily used at lunchtime, but not accessible from an ADA perspective. And additionally, the sunken plaza was a broad expanse that was pretty difficult to activate and often difficult to keep strong tenants in. And so next slide, please. This may be the first time some of you are seeing this, although there's been some marketing brochures put out and the like. Recently approved by the chair of City Planning Commission also as a design change to this portion of the plaza is a pretty bold project that, where it can, lowers the elevated portions of the plaza. And so, it's similar amounts or more, frankly, of movable seating and fixed seating and planting. An elevator is put in at grade to get down to the sunken plaza area. And also the distribution between sunken and at grade was changed so that there's actually more at grade plaza area that was added, and the sunken area was made a little bit smaller. And rather than a big wall in front of the sunken plaza from 6th Avenue, there's a cascade of seating steps. And so when this is done, we think this will be a great improvement of the plaza and general amenities for the public at this property. So this is not directly related to today's application, but thought it was a good opportunity to share. And in case people have seen the construction or wondering what's going on, this is the project, and we think it'll be great. Next slide, please. So the zoning resolution allows in bonus plazas a certain proportion of the plazas within limitations to be utilized for outdoor cafes in conjunction with restaurants that may be operating at the premises. And for many years, Oceana and Del Frisco have been restaurants operating at this property. In 2017, we came to the community board with the first application for the open air cafes. I believe at the time it was to legalize those cafes, which may have started operating prior to receipt of the approval. The approval was granted by the chair of the City Planning Commission, and those have been operating since. Cafe approvals are granted for a period of 3 years. The 3 years there happened to butt up against COVID and the city's emergency regulations, which allowed for plazas to have cafe seating without the cafe application. That emergency order has now expired, and so we're here with what is essentially a renewal for another 3-year term for these cafes. Next slide, please. So these are photos of the cafe areas. This is the area in front of Oceana. Next slide, please. This is the area in front of Del Frisco. It's a little bit out of remove, but this is taken at the Del Frisco's entrance. It shows you portions of the plaza that you saw previously in the photo that I showed of the plaza improvements, obviously showing a little bit more foliage here, taken more recently with the cafe in the background in the middle of the page. And at the rear, you can see the green construction fence, which is where the elevated and sunken plaza areas are currently being renovated. Next slide, please. So this is showing those plaza areas in plan. The basic rules are that cafes may occupy no more than 20% of a plaza. The combination of these two cafes occupy 5.4% of the plaza areas at this property, so that's in compliance. There's also a maximum of 1/3 of the street frontage of the plazas, which would be 117 feet. These occupy far less at the street frontages of the plaza. There's a roll on litter receptacles, which is provided, a roll on signage, which is provided. The hours of these cafes are consistent with the hours of the restaurants. For Del Frisco, it's about 11 to 11 on weekdays, 4 to 11 on weekends. Oceana is 11:30 to 9, closed on Sundays. And the furnishings that are in the plazas when they're open are stored inside overnight when they're closed. So that's the bulk of the presentation. The application process to the chair of the City Planning Commission requires referral out to the community board, and that's why we are here. We thank you for having us and are happy to answer questions.
Thank you so much, Zach. Let's jump right in. Members of the committee, do you have any questions? Any questions? Has to be some questions. Julie, go ahead.
Okay, I guess I'm curious about the access to public bathrooms for people using the space.
Mhm.
Would they be allowed to use the bathrooms inside the building?
I don't know whether or not there are public restrooms within 1221 Avenue of the Americas. I'm happy to get back to you, but I don't know the answer.
How about the restrooms in the cafes or restaurants?
I do not know whether these restaurants welcome people who are coming in off the street and asking to use the restroom.
So I guess the question is, would they be open to letting the public use their bathroom, or would the owner be open to having a public automated public toilet located in the POPs as part of your renovation?
Don't think so. So first of all, we're not proposing a renovation here today. We're only coming with the application to renew the open air cafe seating at the restaurants. I do not believe that the type of restroom that you're referencing is a permitted obstruction within a bonus plaza.
You think there might be a zoning issue to install APT within the POPs?
I'm not aware of that being a permitted installation within a POPs.
Okay, because it's something we're trying to explore with DCP, because the clearances around these APTs are pretty large, that we wanted to at least share clearances with the POPs or actually install them on the POPs. And we're looking to see if any of these POPs owners would be open to exploring that.
Okay, I mean, that may be a separate conversation, you know, with certainly with city planning, because I don't think that's permitted under POPs rules. And if the city were waiving POPs rules to allow that in some way, then that's, I think, a separate conversation with the owners of this or other sites.
And Zach, just to clarify, do you represent the restaurants tonight, or do you represent the operator of the POPs?
I represent the owner of the site, which is the applicant for the open air cafes in the plazas that ownership owns.
So it's basically the owner of the POPs is also the operator.
No, the owner is not the operator. The owner is making the application, and I represent the owner.
Got it. Okay. Okay. Thank you. All right. Next question goes to Mike. Mike, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Is the number of tables and chairs changing in the open air cafes?
No, the number is not changing.
Okay, and so how many are there in total?
You can go back to the plan. I believe we have those. Do we have those figures at the end of the presentation? Yeah, I mean, we do have a table, 11 tables and 44 chairs in the first cafe, 9 tables and 36 chairs in the second cafe.
Okay, and do either of the cafes have the signage that CB5 asked about public being able to sit without purchasing items at the tables and chairs?
The cafes are for table service. That is what open air cafes are for. There is a lot of other seating within the plaza that is open for people who are not purchasing at the restaurants when these restaurants are open.
So yeah, go ahead, Mike.
So currently there are no signs. Is that correct, what you're saying?
I'm not aware of any signs of the sort that you are referring to.
So maybe for clarification, Committee Board 5's position is to understand, as part of the certification criteria, there are, let's say, 8 criteria. The first one is that these kiosk and open air cafes are acceptable, provided that such use promotes public use and enjoyment of the publicly accessible open area. Mm-hmm. So our interpretation is that for these open air cafes to promote public use, they have to be able to be used by the public without need to purchase from this specific restaurant or kiosk. So we believe that it is perfectly fine to have private use of the seating, and that it can be used to serve patrons, but it cannot be an exclusive use.
Okay.
So we have negotiated and asked applicants to consider actually allowing members of the public, visitors who want to, just sit and get a little bit of respite to be able to do so. So is it something that this applicant would be agreeable to?
No, not at this time. And this is 5% of a very large plaza. So these are requested for the use of the restaurants. I understand the position. I understand the community board takes that position, makes that recommendation, but I'm not authorized to agree to that here.
Okay. All right. So moving on to the next
May I
question. Mike, yes, I'm sorry. Do you have any follow-ups or other?
Well, because of the last response, I just wanted to know exactly how many tables and chairs and seating are available to the public in the rest of the North Plaza.
That's a great question. I don't have this statistic off the top of my head. Maybe we can look that up while we're taking other questions, but it's quite a bit. I mean, you can see on the screen here in the middle, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 movable tables and chairs, as well as significant amounts of bench seating surfaces around the planters, which, as I noted, are used pretty well.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike, for the question and the follow-up. Aaron, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
So just to follow up on the number of tables and chairs. When you were saying that the size of the cafe, is the size of the cafe the same as what was approved in 2017? Or are we saying the current proposed cafe is consistent with what happened during COVID? Like, I think
No.
my question is,
No.
was stuff added during the COVID that was not in the 2017?
The size of the cafes is exactly the same as was proposed prior to and approved prior to COVID.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Aaron. Any further questions, members of the committee? Okay, so seeing none, I will open up the floor to members of the public. Do we have any questions or comments from members of the public? Any questions, comments? Okay, so seeing none, let's move back to business session, members of the committee, to discuss the matter. So we need comments. Any comments from members of the committee? Aaron, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
So it's interesting because I was just looking at the resolution, well, not the resolution of the committee from 2017, and it was a flat out denial because of the illegal use for over a year, and we didn't have any discussion on conditions because it looks like there was a lot of incomplete information. So the topics we just discussed appear to not have come up in 2017. The public bathroom use of the tables without purchase. So I definitely think a step would be to include that language because it was not present in our existing resolution from this space but it was a denial last time.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. Nancy, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Well, Layla, we have always had specific signage that is required to be put up. And we have done that in other resolutions. So I think we need to consider putting that in here as well. It's a pretty standard thing. And if we look at other resolutions, it'll be there. And it states the size of the sign, what it has to say, that it has to have tents on the tables. This is, after all, a public space that is being privately used, and the community gave additional FAR to this developer for the building to go higher, taller, bigger. And so we need to get something in return. And the something in return is the public space has to remain available to the public. So I think it's very important that we stick with what we have required in the past.
Yeah, and just to be clear, it's not only about the signage, it's also about a commitment from the operator that, you know, the seating would be available to the public. And what
we don't have that yet. We don't have that yet in this
Yeah.
presentation. There's not it's not a fault of the presenter. It's just not there yet. And so we need
Well,
that commitment from those operators.
Yeah, I mean, they clearly stated that they are not willing to consider this condition. Next comment, Clayton, go ahead.
Thank you so much. Sorry, everybody. I'm a little bit limited in my ability to participate tonight, but I just wanted to echo Nancy's comments and also just add to the committee that, my God, this is like deja vu all over again. I feel like we had this exact same deliberation a month ago. So yes, clearly we need to stick by our precedent. It's ludicrous that privatized seating would not be also available to the public. It's something that most operators have agreed to for 20 years in this district. And I think it's ludicrous and unacceptable that they would refuse to consider that. And I think we should start using some stronger language in that regard, because they are lucky to have this space and we need to have public benefit for it.
Yeah, thank you, Clayton. EJ.
I was going to say the same thing, based on precedent, this is either a straight up denial for that reason or a deny unless.
Yeah, thank you, EJ. So it looks like we are starting to get a sense of where this is going. In our past resolutions, we actually did have an applicant last month or 2 months ago with a similar application. We issued a denial unless the condition would be met. At the time, the attorney representing the applicant was not at liberty to make this determination. So it was turned into a straight denial. So I don't know if we want to, take the view that maybe the applicant would change their mind or, hear our point, so we can issue a denial unless the condition is met, and then we continue to talk to Zach and his team and see if, by pressing the matter a little bit with the applicant, they would be agreeable to our conditions, or if we feel that there's no need to even engage, because Zach was pretty clear that the client is not interested, we can issue a straight denial. My preference would be to issue a denial unless the condition is met. I think that we should try to continue to negotiate in good faith, hoping that maybe with explanation, direct contact, maybe we will make progress. I think that the best outcome, rather than just writing a denial, would actually be to convince the applicant that it is in his interest and in the interest of the community to actually consider a private yet non-exclusive use of these tables. Would also love the opportunity to continue to engage with this particular applicant, as well as the Department of City Planning, on the possibility to actually provide bathroom use, which is really a super critical need in the city. And it is really shameful that the city of New York is not providing bathrooms to those who need it, including tourists, including disadvantaged populations. So that would be my preference, a denial unless, with the understanding, of course, that, if the condition is not met, it would be turned into a straight up denial for the full board to vote on Thursday in 2 weeks. Julie, I see you had your hand up. The hand went back down. Okay. All right. So I think we're ready to make a motion.
Motion to deny unless.
Okay. Is everybody comfortable with this strategy?
Yes.
Okay, I see heads nodding. Okay, great. And language will be added in this resolution to address the need for public bathrooms. We understand that, it may not be exactly within the purview of this application that is strictly for, permitting an open air cafe, but I think we need to start introducing language and using the leverage that we have to, continue to push this conversation with the Department of City Planning. So we have a motion from Dave. We need a second.
Second.
All right, excellent. And Aaron, if you want to take the vote.
Great. Clayton.
Yes.
Okay. EJ.
Yes.
Chris. What, did we lose Chris? Okay. Mike.
Yes.
Nancy.
Yes.
Julie.
Yes.
Mary.
Yes.
Andreas.
Yes.
Nick.
Yes.
David.
Yes.
Aaron is a yes. Layla.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time and hard work. Thank you.
Thank you, Zach. And, let's be in touch in good faith and see if, there's any movement, progress that we can make, reach some sort of an agreement. I think it would be great. So we'll give you a call tomorrow.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Good night.
All right, the next item on the agenda is a presentation for 11 East 22nd Street. This is an applicant seeking a zoning map amendment to rezone block 851. And I'm not going to read the list of lots, from a C64M to a C64 zoning district. The proposed zoning map amendment would facilitate the conversion of the lower 3 floors of 11 East 22nd Street from commercial units to residential units. We have the applicants here with us tonight. And I just want to make it clear, and the applicant will explain, but this is not yet an application, so they are coming to us for information purposes only. They have not been certified yet, but they felt that it was important and valuable to come to us ahead of certification to tell us what they're planning. And of course, once they are certified, then they will be required to come to us for our comments. So this item is not for action. We will not take a vote. We are going to hear what the applicant has to say. We will certainly make comments. We will hear from members of the public if they have any questions or comments, but we will take an action on this item once it has been certified, because of course, between now and certification, the scope and nature of the proposal could change, and we want to make sure that we are commenting on what the Department of City Planning has certified. So with this long preamble, I'm going to turn it to the team of applicants to tell us about this particular action that they're seeking.
Great, thank you. My name is Stan Baton from Shell Nobel PC. For the applicant, I'm joined by Sandy Hornick, land use consultant with our firm, Larry Friedman, who's the applicant, and I think he's here, Mario Natarelli, who is the board president of 11 East 22nd Street. Thank you for letting us present this potential application with the community board. As mentioned, the application is still in its early stages. We're not even filed, nor near ULURP. We just wanted to have an initial open dialogue with the committee regarding the potential application. We want to come earlier rather than later and hope that you are receptive of this rezoning. We'll run through a brief presentation and then we're here to answer any questions and receive feedback. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so let's see if I go to this full screen. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, yes, yes,
yes. Okay, perfect. All right, so a brief summary of the project. The proposed application seeks a zoning amendment on block 851. Here are a few lots. We'll show it, visually show it in the next slide, in the Gramercy Park neighborhood of this community district, from a C64M zoning district to a C64 zoning district. It would permit the conversion. It's not going to require, and we could go into detail, it's not going to require the conversion, but it will permit the conversion of the lower 3 floors of 11 East 22nd Street from commercial units, potentially to residential units. Currently, the zoning district, the C64M, restricts the uses on the lower floors to commercial and or manufacturing uses only. The proposed rezoning would remove this preservation requirement to prevent additional uses at the development site, including residential units. The applicant specifically proposes to convert the 3rd floor of an 8-floor building to the residential use. The rezoning would not result in an increase in allowable FAR. So this is really just for use and removing the preservation requirement. See, this is not very clear, but here we are in the project area located in a C64M zoning district. Just a little bit of history. In 1961, this whole block was zoned C64. This is part of a larger C64 district that extended south along 5th Avenue frontages as far south as East 12th Street. The zoning remained unchanged for around 2 decades. This block was changed to a C64M zoning district in the adoption of the comprehensive loft policy in around 1981. The M suffix, so the C64M suffix, retained the previous zoning regulations with regard to new construction, but had established new rules for conversion of loft buildings and other non-residential buildings that could be used for loft type purposes that require the preservation of loft type space when converting other space to residential use. Many other rezonings in the areas have since removed this preservation requirement, such as the Chelsea rezoning in 1999 and the Ladies Mild rezoning in 2004. However, nothing has been changed on this block. So here's more a visual. This is the tax map. The development site is in red, and the proposed project area, which would be the rezoning area, is in blue. It would be the frontage along East 22nd Street. It's between Park Avenue South and Broadway. Here we have a area map, so you could kind of see the uses in the area. This block frontage is mainly mixed commercial residential or multifamily residential. As you can see here, other portions are commercial and office, but specifically this frontage is focused on residential buildings. Only few buildings on this frontage were ever industrial buildings, and these buildings have since been converted. So this is an aerial. Sorry, it's a little blurry, but this is the building here. As the proposal stands right now, we're only looking to remove the preservation requirement, but right now just looking for the conversion of the 3rd floor. Right now, the ground floor commercial will remain the same. Ground floor commercial would still be permitted. It's just the requirement to keep it that way. So this is just a summary of what I mentioned earlier. Here's the specific zoning resolution section that requires preservation. apart from the use and the conversion provisions, there's no major difference between the C64 and the C64M districts in terms of bulk and permitted floor area for new developments. The removal of the M suffix would unlikely materially change the block because there's been such a decline in manufacturing and commercial uses, and most of the block is already residential with ground floor commercial uses. It was a brief presentation. We just wanted to come to the community board and have a conversation about this potential application.
Great. Thank you very much. We really appreciate it when applicants come ahead of any action so that we can have a engagement and conversation ahead of anything being set in stone, kind of. And very often this is how it feels. So much appreciation for coming early. I have a couple of questions. I'm not totally sure. First of all, what does the M stand for, and does it stand for manufacturing? Was it a reflection that the intention was to agree that it is still a commercial district, but that the M would put some sort of manufacturing permitted uses in the mix? Is that what it is?
Yes, Andy, do you want to explain?
Sure. So this is a very unusual situation. I actually worked on this at City Planning 40 odd years ago. Anyway, it was a recognition that in this area, the existing manufacturing was present not just in within the M15 or M16 zones in the mid blocks between the avenues, but actually also in the large loft buildings that you might see, or loft type buildings that you might see on the north-south avenues. And so the M15s also became 15Ms, which allowed conversion of those buildings, and the C62 and C64 zones got those Ms, which placed some restrictions on conversion on those buildings, basically in exchange for preservation. So that's the short answer to why there's an M there.
And the C64 would still permit commercial uses.
It still permits commercial. Yeah. I would add, just because I listened to the president, that in all probability, by the time this was adopted, there were no manufacturing uses on the properties in question by 1981. That the data that was gathered to present this, which was all computerized data, was gathered on a area-wide basis by zoning district. So we at the time knew how much industrial space there was in a C62, what became the C62M, what became the C64M, or the M15M and M16. We didn't have specific block by block data.
Okay, and so what you're saying also is that originally it was a C64, and then including the mid block, because I thought that the C64 was only for the avenues.
I believe the 14th Street block was, I mean, I have to go back and look now.
No, I'm not talking about 14th Street. I'm talking about 22nd Street.
22nd, I mean 23rd Street, I'm sorry, was originally C64 all the way, and it was
but the site that you are seeking to rezone is 22nd Street.
Right. So
I'm trying to pull it up right now.
I don't recall that it was ever a C64.
So I'm looking at it now.
I'm pulling up this. All right, I have.
Yes, the whole block was C64 in 1961.
So I could just share my screen 1 second. So this is a historical zoning map. This was prior to the 1981 loft. So here it is. I don't know if you could see my cursor. Here's the C64 on the whole block. Can I mark?
Yeah.
I don't know if I can mark. It's right here.
Okay. So basically, it encompassed the south side of 23rd and the north side of 22nd,
Mhm.
and then Fifth Avenue.
Correct.
Right,
So it was sort of like inverted L shape.
right.
Okay. And then it was M16 for the west side of Fifth Avenue and N15 for the east side. Okay. Okay. All
And
right.
then- Yep. And then later on, it changed to the C64M here, M16M here. As you can see, M15M here. So they added these M suffixes in 1981.
Got it. Okay. Okay. Thank you. That's very helpful. Okay. I have many more questions, but I'm going to turn it to my colleagues. Go ahead, members of the committee, if you have any questions. Okay, I don't see any hands going up, so I'm going to continue with, Nick, go ahead.
Thanks, Leila. I'm just trying to understand the scope of this change. Will it affect the entire block that you indicated along 22nd Street, or is it just for this one lot?
It would be for the frontage on 22nd Street because we don't want to do spot zoning. We'll make the land use rationale to be across 22nd Street, especially since there are mainly residential buildings along 22nd Street. So it's the frontage on the north side.
If you pull up your screen again, where you showed us the dotted map, that one.
Would be here.
So that's the change will affect everything within the dotted area. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay.
But most of these buildings already are fully residential or have ground floor commercial, and they don't have the preservation requirements because either they were new construction or they converted to full residential prior to 1981. Our building was kind of left out of that.
So the brown lots, those are already residential.
Correct.
And looks like number 6, that's
Can I just step in?
Commercial and
A couple of these lots are zoning lot mergers with the two new large buildings that were built on both sides of the block.
I could try to show that as well.
I think it's best if you keep the presentation up because.
Oh, I was just going to show you where the lot mergers were so you could get a sense.
Okay.
Yeah. So if we see here.
so I guess
These
my
were the
point,
lot mergers. So, yeah.
I get it. I think my point is, if you're coming to us with this change, I think the committee really needs to review the effect on the rest of the block as well. We can't just look at the one parcel. We have to see what other changes on the block are going to be made.
Understood. We could provide additional information on how those buildings would be or not be affected by this rezoning change. But again, there are no bulk changes. It would just be removing the preservation, but we could provide that information to the committee.
And just to bring a little bit more of context, the current FAR is 10, correct?
Correct.
And
it's not built out to 10, but it's permitted.
Okay, so that was going to be my question. How much available FAR exists? Because there has been a number of lot mergers, and there are 2 very, very tall and dense buildings. Are there any other available air rights on this block?
I believe the building is currently built out to around a 6.
If you could, Fian, could you put the merge lot thing back up? Okay, so the things with X's on this lot, on this block, are already 10 FAR, existing 10 FAR developments. The yellow and the purple are the 2 mergers that are those large buildings you talked about. And the pink is, I'm guessing, a 1980s era apartment house that on the corner there. So although I guess it would be possible to merge through one of the existing overbuilt buildings or fully built out buildings next to it, this lot doesn't actually adjoin any potential development site.
I'm actually looking at the map. I'm sorry.
So we're lot,
We're this lot.
there's our lot right there. So we only adjoin the pinkish lot to the left and north of us, which is fully built out. And adjoined to our east or right is a large converted building that was converted before 1981 to residential with ground floor non-residential use. We don't actually adjoin anything else that's developed. The yellow is fully developed into one of those big buildings. The purple is developed into another one of those very big buildings you described. The two X's along Park Avenue are existing built out, fully built out buildings. So while there is some potential for development.
Where is the available air right, and what is the FAR on the block?
So technically, I mean, the building is built out to around a 6.5, but you would have to merge it with a.
Your building
Correct.
is and you said 6.5?
Approximately 6.5 FAR, 6.4, 6.5 FAR.
Got
But in order to sell those and transfer those development rights, you would have to do it with an adjacent zone, with an adjacent lot. But what we're saying is that they're already built out to maximum.
Got
So
it.
we couldn't really sell those air rights.
Okay, and are you in the Ladies Mile Historic District? I should know that, but is it a landmark building?
It's not a landmark building, no.
Okay. Okay, and the rationale to use the rezoning is to avoid the spot zoning.
For the boundary, yes.
Okay, and so
Look,
they-
can I just add something? There is no non-residential use on this block that is otherwise protected by the zoning, other than on the 2 floors of this building.
Yeah, no, we understand that. We're trying to see if there are any other unintended consequences.
Yeah.
To taking this route. Have you explored the BSA route?
I think originally, yes, but it's to do a variance is not possible at this site. You know, you would need a unique physical condition, and it goes through reasonable return. And then there is, I believe, a city planning special permit, which also requires much more, and it wouldn't be applicable here. So I think it's just not a feasible application at BSA. So I know it's an undertaking by the applicant, a huge undertaking, but it's important to the applicant to remove this preservation requirement.
Can you speak more about the special permit option through the DCP?
I can. Sandy, do you know a little bit more about the?
I think there's a good faith marketing effort, which is extremely, it becomes very questionable if you've got the existing person there, whether you're going to meet the good faith marketing requirements.
No, but my question is, can you speak to the special permit?
Yes, you
So
have to.
It's pursuant to which article?
I think it's 74,782.
You have to make a good faith effort to rent the space at prevailing rents to a permitted use for a period of time. And one, they tend to be very long and time consuming, but where in the condition where you have the existing person there, the question, and this has come up before, is that credible that they're actually making a good faith effort? So it doesn't hold great promise. We don't believe so.
Okay.
Also, they're.
By the way, I wrote the special permit too, so,
They can blame
Only
you.
fair for him to be here tonight, to put him on the spot.
Okay, Mike, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, that was my similar questions. Why a BSA application wouldn't be needed? But since you asked that, I'll try to phrase it another way. Is right now the second floor and the first floor I can see has been rented out. Is second floor and the third floor rented out now?
So Larry, if you want to talk about the existing uses.
Hi, Larry Friedman. Thank you for listening to us tonight. So the first floor has the retail unit has been a bank. We expect it to stay a bank or retail. It's owned by an investment group out of California, I believe, who was the original sponsor. The second floor is a commercial unit, and they would choose to remain so. The owner hasn't given me any indication that she wants to convert. I am the original purchaser of the third floor back in 2004. I ran a IT business out of the space. About 4 years ago, we sold the company, and the purchasers basically were vacant through COVID, but they did maintain their lease, and they have since left in December. I've tried to rent it in good faith. It's really tough out there, I got to tell you. And my intention is to use the space for myself. Not interested in selling it. Interested to use it for family use. And I'm a New York City guy my whole life, born in the Bronx, raised in Brooklyn, and I would love the ability to make this sort of my my home.
Okay. And so this particular action would permit residential use. So actually, can you speak to the upper floors? Are the upper floors residential already?
They are all residential. Everything above me, 4, 5, 6, and 7, and 8 are all residential already.
And those are conforming uses?
Yes, they were permitted. They were permitted to convert into residential units, and by converting into residential units, that required the lower floors to remain commercial and manufacturing uses as per that requirement.
And if the building were to be, and the building is a condo, right?
Yes.
Okay, so if the building were to be redeveloped or extended, then the upper floors would also be permitted to be residential.
They're already residential.
Now, I understand that, but if additional floors were built, the building is not built to the max FAR.
Oh,
So if there were additional floors, if the building was extended to be built to its full FAR, these additional floors would be permitted to be residential.
Yes, as they are today.
Okay.
So
we're not got it.
The enlargements are not governed by the M district. It's only about the M designation. It's only about the conversion of floor space that existed back in 1981.
So this restriction only applies from ground to 3.
Correct.
And okay, got it. Okay. Mike, you still have your hand up. Go ahead.
So I understand that the third floor is for you to make a home in, and the second floor will be up to you to decide whether or not later on that will become residential.
It'll be up to the owner if they choose to. They're not forced to. This rezoning would not force them to do a residential unit. They could continue their current existing commercial business at the site, but they would have the future right to do that if this rezoning.
And I'll also add, we're a really small building, only 8 floors, and the commercial use on inside the building, not referring to the bank, of course, it takes a big toll on the expenses and the way the building operates. And I know everyone in the building would love to see this happen. For so many reasons. It's really tough when you have a residential units as well as commercial units in the same building. The traffic, the elevator usage, it just never saw how it really made sense to begin with. But yeah,
I think we forwarded letters of support from the other tenants to the community board.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. Like, how are the other occupants of the building feel about this change?
Mario's our board president.
Yeah,
Can Mario chime in?
I'm happy to speak to that. My name is Mario Natarelli. I live on the 4th floor. I've been in the building since 2005. So have enjoyed Larry as a neighbor and colleague on the board. I'm also trained as an architect. And so for whatever that's worth, experiencing this mixed use building with one elevator and one stairwell is challenging. So everyone in the building is very receptive to the idea of the 3rd floor converting to residential. It'll take strain out of our elevator. It's very difficult for a building built in the late 1800s to maintain our infrastructure. And so the less strain we put on the elevator and the common areas, the better for us. So overall, we're very supportive and excited about the potential, and would love your guidance and support. Happy to answer more questions if it's helpful.
And currently there is only one elevator, or is there one passenger and one freight?
No, only one elevator, and it's probably 4x4. And the stairwell, the internal stairwell, is also limited. So this conversion, while well intended, I think probably would have been better to have been all residential above the bank. That would have been ideal if you could rewrite history.
Okay. All right. Any more questions from members of the committee? Okay, so seeing none, I will open up the floor to members of the public. Ruth Stannett, you have your hand up. You are going to be permitted to speak, and you can unmute yourself and you can introduce yourself.
I'm the owner of the 2nd floor. I own a market research firm for many, many years. Been here since 2005. And I just have a very simple question. If this gets approved, I'm on the 2nd floor commercial. Do I can continue to operate commercial or residential at my choice?
Yes, if this rezoning goes through,
thank you.
We'd be able to.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
so
wouldn't be forced to. You wouldn't be forced to.
So both uses would become permitted. So you can continue to be, use as a commercial space, or you can decide to convert to residential. One question though, does this conversion, once it is permitted, does this conversion need to go through any steps with the Department of City Planning or with the DOB maybe?
I have to double check the specifics. We might need to do a deed restriction removal. I don't know what documentation there is, but it would be as of right at that point. So I don't know if we would have to remove any recorded documents, but I could double check that and inform the board. But I don't believe any other actions are needed, but I will double check that.
Okay. All right. Any other questions from members of the public, or any follow-up question from you, Ruth? Okay, I see. Let's see. Yeah, Mario, you have your hand up. You can go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to add that one of the other challenges of having mixed use is security. So trying to build effective security in a building that only has one elevator and one stairwell and mixed floors with traffic that is, with different traffic patterns and different owner occupants is very challenging too. So I just wanted to put that forward.
Okay, and just to understand the physicality of the space, does the elevator stop on each floor?
Yeah, it opens up
each-
to each unit directly.
And you
Correct.
open to the units.
Right.
Okay,
So it's a keyed elevator, and the stairwell also has to have gates at each of these breaks between the commercial and the residential floors.
So you could be in a situation where you enter the elevator with someone who claims they're visiting the commercial tenant,
Deliveries.
and then follow you in the elevator, and then
We've
Okay.
had it happen.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Okay. All right. So just want to make sure that members of the public have had their chance to ask their questions or make comments. I don't see any other hands up. So we can move to business session. As I said, this is a preliminary discussion with an applicant. So it's more an opportunity for us to, give feedback. If the applicant decides to actually move forward with certification, they would have to work with the Department of City Planning, which I'm sure would have additional, questions and comments on how this rezoning would have to be drafted. So they are probably a month away from possibly coming back to us, but it's useful to give them, a sense of feedback of what we believe is a appropriate course of action. Given that it is not an application, I'm going to keep this business session in a fairly loose form. I think the goal is really to, have a dialogue with the applicant rather than, discussing the matter among ourselves and then, throwing our recommendation at them. So let's start with comments, and then if need be, when appropriate, we can engage with the applicants again in more of a dialogue. Anyone wants to start with some comments, members of the committee? Mike.
My comment is that the Key Bank on the ground floor, Key Bank has the contract with the state of New York to handle unemployment payments and the bank cards.
Correct.
And so that is the only branch in the 5 boroughs, and there's no other branch on Long Island. And I just want to make you understand that that branch is very important. If there's problems with electronics or telephone communications with the bank, that people do need to go face to face sometimes with the bank to rectify problems. So I just want to make sure that that retail space remains.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, this is something that the zoning map and zoning. So just to be clear, it is both a zoning text and a zoning map amendment, rezoning, right? It's not only a zoning map, it's also a zoning text.
Sandy or Fayan, you can better answer that than me.
I'm thinking it's just a zoning map. Fayan, what do you think?
I'll move that. Yeah, just to, because C64M would still exist, just not at this site. So I believe it's just a rezoning. We could double check, but I believe it's just a rezoning because we're not removing it from other areas. It's just this, we're just rezoning the specific area, not removing the preservation from other districts, but I could double check.
I think that it would be important to keep the retail use at the ground floor. I think this would be really, really important. And, it is consistent with the rest of the district on each side of Fifth Avenue, actually. And it seems to be, in accordance with the purpose of this action.
And I'm nearly certain the owners would have no problem with that.
Okay. Any other comments or thoughts from members of the committee? Nick.
I think the change as it applies to this parcel is innocuous and maybe even makes sense. I would just want to make sure we understand the implication on the rest of the block before we agree to it.
I appreciate that, Nick.
Yeah, I agree. And listen, I'm the first one to jump on spot zoning and decry how bad and terrible it is. In this particular case, I feel that the rezoning area is so small that it is still spot zoning. I mean, a zoning that is not spot zoning is usually at least a couple of blocks. Here it's like half a block. It would really be for the purpose of changing the use in one particular unit. I'm just wondering if there is a simpler way. And I hear the argument on the BSA, but it wouldn't be the first time that BSA would approve a variance. Now, the process and the burden to an applicant is something that we're not really we privy. I mean, we know that they come to us and we review those applications. But in terms of the involvement with the legal team and the discussions with the BSA and the amount of documentation that needs to be prepared, the thorough report on the analysis, and so on and so forth. But I'm sure that doing a rezoning is pretty extensive action as well. And the route of the special permit pursuant to 74-782. Another venue, something that comes to mind is, if the building were to become a historic landmark, then you could do a use change through 74-71 or 74-711, 74-79, I'm sorry, or 74-711. Those are, I don't know, it seems to me that, having a zoning map change for other buildings for the purpose of just, getting a conforming use on unit 3 seems to be a little bit of an overkill. So I'm just, wondering if you would, if there are other avenues to explore before jumping into this particular action.
Could re-examine, we'll re-examine, but I believe rezoning was the only route, but we will double check.
How do you feel about gaining landmark status for the building, which I believe is eligible and probably meritorious, so that you can use this these tools in the toolbox that would allow for a use change. You would also get tax credit for your facade if you also apply for the tax credit through the state. I mean, there are just so many benefits. I know that people are scared of landmarks, but it's actually a very good tool of it's a different kind of preservation, but it gives you the opportunity to do many things that you would otherwise not be permitted to.
Understood. I mean, we have not discussed landmarking. I know it could provide benefits, but it could also provide some disadvantages. So we have not discussed that at all. So I can't speak to that. But
we just spent $800,000 in fixing the facade. It would have been good to know this a few years ago.
Well, as you know, those facades are in constant need of improvement, and the tax credit can actually be sought for any kind of work within the building. If your building is listed under the state register, which is a different process from the city, then you can get a tax credit for any improvements. And if you don't use the tax credits, you can sell the tax credits. I mean, there are really lots of benefits, and the burden to do work to a building that, you know, seems to be a very stable condo with, you know, a good board and, you know, good condo unit owners who don't have any crazy desires to do anything crazy. You know, you are already doing all the stuff that LPC requires. You know, you file your permit with the DOB. You know, I'm sure you want quality work by reputable contractors. So, you know, the burden would not be terribly different, and it would, you know, provide a number of benefits. I see that Mary has her hand up. Mary, go ahead.
Yeah, just to piggyback on that, unless I'm mistaken, it also would make your air rights more portable. It's just another attractive feature.
That's right. That would allow you to actually sell your air rights to a broader area than only through a lot merger. So, you know, it has lots of advantages, I think. You know, something to consider. I personally am a little unsure about a zoning map amendment for so many lots. And as Nick said, you know, we would want to really, you know, look into the unintended consequences that this may bring, because it would imply, you know, so many other blocks. So I don't know if any of, you know, what we said resonates with the team of applicants.
I mean, we'll revisit and we will, you know, discuss the recommendations, and we could provide additional information to the board. Are we set to present again for the full board, or would we just send you that information, the committee, regarding, you know, the additional lots and maybe why other like BSA or the special permits were not sought? You know, we still have to discuss that, but would we contact committee?
No, at this point, you would continue to engage with the committee, because it is not an application, and because we're not taking an action, it is actually not going to be presented at the full board. So we will continue to, you know, engage with you guys. We certainly don't want to, you know, like it looks like we're leaning towards not really totally being comfortable with the zoning map amendment, and we certainly don't want to take a formal position. I think that, you know, it's going to be much more productive to, you know, continue to communicate with you and, you know, and dialogue. And, you know, as I said, we're very appreciative that you're coming early. And, you know, we want to work with you and, you know, find the best possible solution. I think that we understand the rationale and the justification for this use change. And we just want to make sure that, you know, we're not entering the unintended consequences zone that, you know, would be unfortunate.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you. I just, you know, you've got some things to talk about, and we will talk about them internally, but I do want to emphasize that there were no other properties in the rezoning area subject to restrictions because of the C6 4M. So
I understand. I appreciate that, Sandy, but that's in terms of a use change.
That's all C6 4M does. It's the only thing it does. Everything else is already just C6-4, which is why they were able to build those big buildings. And, you know, so the only property affected by the change would be this one, if it were to be adopted. But there are some other things for us to consider. We should talk about those too internally.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Great. So I don't know, Aaron, I think you were going to say something.
No, I just wanted to clarify, are we drafting any memo with these things we're discussing or summarizing our notes on this, or since we're not taking?
No, this will appear in our minutes. Okay. And, you know, they will be available as part of our minutes, but we're not taking any action. We're not making any recommendation. So, you know, it will just be present in the meeting minutes.
Okay.
Yeah. Is everybody on the committee comfortable with just, leaving it at that and continuing the dialogue with this team of applicants?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I see some heads nodding. Okay, excellent. So once again, much appreciation for your desire to come to see us early. Let's continue to be in touch, and let's continue to see, what would be the best path for you to solve this use change for this particular unit.
Great. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you. So with all of that being said, I think we have gone through all our items. I need to make sure that there are no new business. It's part of the requirements of this meeting. Are there any new businesses? I see no hands going up. So I will adjourn the meeting, wishing everybody a good evening. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.